Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Coroner. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. This ended up being a really interesting case, just because we started off knowing who was the person responsible in this particular regard of... We know that it was his son, Caleb, because he was covered in blood. He strangled his mom. He used a Christmas ornament to stab his dad multiple times. But it seemed like he wasn't in the right state of mind because afterwards he went to play bumper cards and he's laughing maniacally. So it seems like he might have had a breakdown, like a manic episode or something like that. So when they actually do catch up with Caleb, though, it becomes a question of, well, he claims not to remember what he did and what happened. Obviously, Donovan's wondering whether or not he's faking it or not. But Jenny, and that's the interesting thing, because Jenny has a not necessarily vested interest in this case, but there's vested parallels, because it's like she ends up bringing up something to Donovan, which she doesn't talk about the Katie thing much at all. The only person that knows the truth about it, I think, is just Neil, her therapist. I don't think anyone else, and her dad, obviously, and maybe Clark. He never really got the full answers for it, but maybe he got enough of it to figure out probably what went down and what her father's involvement and everything was. That's still partially unclear. But aside from all of that, you have her coming from the perspective of, she tells Donovan, right, after my sister died, I blocked it out. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry, because he didn't know. Jenny she doesn't talk about that at all. So for her, she wants to at least give Caleb the benefit of the doubt. She wants to actually get him checked by she wants him to talk to Neil in particular, because Neil helped her with her memory issues, so this way we could get to the root of it, because eventually it turns into a situation of dissociative memory loss. So it's either he, from the trauma and from killing his parents, or at the very least maybe he witnessed it. Now whether he's the perpetrator or witness, Donovan needs to know, but they need to take him somewhere to get properly psychologically evaluated to get a better understanding of everything that's going on. So, but I think that's the interesting thing, because for Jenny, I think she wants to believe no, I know from my own personal experience that this can't happen. So part of me was wondering, what's she trying to give Caleb the benefit of the doubt, But obviously, the stark difference between them, it's she does believe that despite everything, because Neil asks her, what do you think? Because it's he tries not to choose, he tries to come at this as clinically as possible, not really trust, going with his gut or anything, but she's what does your gut tell you? And Jenny's that, yeah, he really did lose his memory, and he's Neil's but, and she's the difference is, I never meant to kill Katie, it was an accident. Can't say the same thing for Caleb. And the case actually takes some very interesting developments where Malik ended up finding all these payments that Caleb and Aaron, because we met the older sibling at the house because he was stopping by to visit his parents, because he's oh, where's Caleb? And that's a hard cut to Donovan finding Caleb at that point. But they ended up finding out that there were payments. Flora, who came over and discovered the bodies, she is one of the recipients of some of those payments. But they have a book. They have everyone's first names but no last names. So it's what's all this payments about? And so obviously they bring this up to Flora, who I thought it was interesting, because Flora's wait, is Aaron here? It's yeah, he has a very distinct cologne or something like that. And Jenny's oh, okay, interesting. How do you pick that up on a smell? And the moment they saw each other, they hugged each other. I was something's weird here, because it seems like they know a lot more than they're letting on. This never came up in the episode, but my immediate thought was obviously it's a payment goes back to 99 or something. I'm could it be that Caleb's actually their child? That's what I started thinking, that maybe Caleb might be their son. And they had he grew up thinking he was Aaron's brother. I've seen this type of storyline pop up in TV shows and stuff like that, other crime dramas where it's oh, these people grew up as siblings, but in actuality they're mother and child, or father and child, whatever the case may be. They're actually parents, right? But the family keeps it hush hush. That's what I immediately thought this was, and I thought that's what they were going to avail, like, because it did seem like Flora and Aaron did have like a relationship, but I just wasn't sure what it was. At first I was like, are you actually secret siblings or something? Like, I didn't know, like, it kept being like changing in my head, like, what this is all about. Like, it just seemed like there was something odd there, and it was weird, like, the moment they were around each other. But, yeah, it turns out Erin didn't know about Flora getting paid off. She initially thought, like, right, it was, to pay off, like, some medical bills, like, her psych treatments and stuff like that, but the payments kept coming. So, it turns out it's not just her. The, Erin and Caleb's parents, like, paid off a lot of people. Because, like, for them, they were just trying to brush stuff under it. Like, because Caleb's always had anger issues. Because he was never, like, I guess, masculine enough. He was always a kind, like, sweet kid. But, like, their dad, I guess, kind of, like, took that out of him. Like, so there was some, probably more, like, it may not have ever gotten physical, but it was probably, like, mental and emotional abuse of, like, yeah, let me take you hunting so you can get strong. And so he was kind of forced onto, like, these hunting trips to, like, kind of, I guess, quote-unquote, man up. And so that's around those ages is when, like, a lot of that anger started for him. And the fact is that he would lash out at people, even to the point, like, what happened in 99 or whatever with Flora is that she was pushed down the stairs by Caleb. And obviously, like, he was like, I'm so sorry, which you can tell that triggers, like, Jenny a little bit, because that's how she ended up accidentally killing her sister, was like pushing her over the railings and she fell. It's kind of a same thing. It wasn't down the stairs, it was like over the railings if I remember correctly, but still, like, it's similar enough that that's going to trigger something in her. But to realize, like, because I think for her, learning that, like, Caleb's had this his entire life. The fact is that, because it's like, what also made me think Aaron and Flora were his parents is, like, usually we could calm him down. Like, I think, like, Caleb probably wouldn't know. Like, if they were his parents, I figured Caleb wouldn't know. But obviously, Aaron's got marks on his body from, like, we've had a ticking bomb next to us the entire time, and it finally exploded. So that's why Aaron was almost, like, not too surprised. Like, Caleb's had these anger issues forever, and they've been able to subside them to some. But it's like, I guess they never, because the family wants to keep stuff private and keep everything, like rather than resolving the issue, like trying to get him some help. I mean, who knows how far they went with it. Maybe they just kept, trying to subside his anger over and over and over and over again. Because it was actually Aaron that invited Caleb to the dinner. And it's like, maybe if I hadn't invited him, maybe what started all this was because my parents uninvited him. Or maybe they told him something he didn't want to hear. Like, not just being uninvited, but maybe, like I said, like Aaron and Flora might be his parents. I'm still holding on to that, but maybe, like, it never gets brought up this episode, so maybe I'm completely off basis here. But at the very least, it's like, other than just like, oh, you're uninvited, we don't want you here, you call so much, like, they probably said some stuff that pissed him off and triggered him, and hence why he did what he did. So, but the fact is, learning that he's kind of a ticking bomb, I wonder, did it do something to Jenny where she was like, right, all my psychological stuff, like, I've always been kind of a ticking bomb. Maybe it just hasn't hit yet. Like, my trauma and my issues and everything, like, maybe it hasn't gotten to the point, but maybe she's scared that it could eventually get to the point, like, that, like, she's never had instances like Caleb, but her trauma has manifested in different ways. And it's like, what if I'm a ticking bomb and I just don't even know it yet? That it just hasn't gotten to the point that I've exploded yet. I've gone off. So that's been I think that's an interesting thing of, like, this case hit a little too close to home, just like the parallels between Jenny and Caleb. Like, they're not a one-for-one, but there's just so many crossing vectors that I think that will kind of resonate through Jenny's mind. Especially later on when the moment, like, the moment Neil left his book behind, I was like, that's not good. Like, I thought, like, what was going to happen was Caleb was going to read your note, and then that was going to make him snap, especially when they focus on the fact that the pen was there. So you do notice, like, when Neil comes back with the sandwich. I'm like, oh, the pin's still there. I thought he would have grabbed it. That would have. I was like, oh, this could go bad. But because for him, he's like, no, I need answers now. But Neil wants to take things slow because it's like, I need go. If you rush to the answer, it could re-traumatize you all over again. But for him, it's like he's going a little manic. He's like, I need to know what happened. I need to know if I did what they said I did. And he ended up taking Neil hostage. Ended up taking a pin, holding it to his neck. So he wants to talk to Jenny, and he needs Jenny to tell her the truth. So everyone shows up, and Jenny tells him the truth of like, yes, based on the evidence that's been presented so far, it does seem like you might have killed your parents. And obviously for him, that's a lot to take in. He's like, wait, no, I could. And he gets arrested. Now, what I'm unclear about is this the end of this story, or is there more to it? Because there is other things that were kind of set up, interestingly enough, in the background, like Malik. Like someone was spray painting the words like, what was it? It was justice for like John or something like that. I don't remember what it was. That's something that popped up way earlier in the season. It was about that food delivery guy that was being attacked by that racist bastard. I want to say, what was that, like episode 2 or 3 of the season? It was a thing that like his it got spray painted. Tagged on the building, and it was, I want to say that was in like part of one of the episodes, and it was just like a background thing, but now it seems like there's more to it, because Malik was looking into it, like, trying to figure out who the person is that they're talking about, but obviously you have Donovan being like, no, let's focus on the 2 homicides that are in front of us. So there's definitely something there, because also like, I think maybe that's just going to be a next episode thing. I don't know. But it's like, that, I wasn't, because like, once again, like, they slowly build up the overarching things. Like, last season's overarching thing ended up being a little bit more obvious, and it kind of like peaked. And granted, a lot of stuff ended up tying together that I wouldn't have expected to tie together. So like, that's why I'm like, it's going to be interesting to see what they do about this season. Like, what all is going to tie together. So that's why I'm like, I'm curious, especially with just the main case itself. Caleb, not only did he stab his dad, he also broke off a piece of like that angel ornament like in his ear after he died. That's why I'm like, I don't know, that seemed like even further above and beyond. Like, there was supposed to be like, there's supposed to be some significance there. So that's why I'm like, are we actually done with the case? Like, there's still, did he just like snap? Because it's just, are we just going to leave it at, oh, he's always had issues, underlining issues, and just he finally exploded, like all there is to it? Or is there going to be reveals where it's like, there's going to be a lot more to a lot of this? I mean, because we got explanations for a lot of this rage, but I also feel like maybe Aaron and Flora weren't saying everything. So that's why I'm like, I don't know. I feel like could be more to the case if they decided to dive into it, but it might just be all that it is. But I just feel like they should go deeper, because I feel like there's got to be more to that. We'll find out. Obviously, if you've already seen the episodes when they originally aired in Canada, then you already know, but I have no idea what to expect with the next episode, if this carries over or not. But there's other elements that are carrying over, because this all put things in perspective for Jenny. Because earlier, it's like Ross wants to invite more people to the table. He wants to invite Liam as well as, Peggy, but he doesn't want to let Jenny know that he's inviting Peggy. But even his dad's like, yeah, this might be a lot for your mom, like, so maybe it's just best that it is just all three of us, just the three of us this year. Because she's like, yeah, I appreciate you inviting Liam, but she's still got to figure out her love life situation. It's like Clark messaged her, so it's like she's still got to decide where things kind of go from there, who she's going to choose. Like, both of these men that, you know, it's like, yeah, nothing serious with Clark, but that's what's so good about it. The Liam thing is, like, who's to say we won't find ourselves spiraling back to where we were beforehand? So, concerns about that versus, like, something that's just fun and not serious right now. It's like, which direction she's going to lean. I think we kind of get an answer by the end. But it's interesting because, like, yeah, the dinner setup and everything, well, the setup at the table, parallel to like the setup at Caleb and Aaron's house, where it's like parents' house, where like, yeah, there were 4 plates, but it's like if Flora and Aaron were coming, then why weren't there 5 for Caleb? And it's like, and Aaron's explanation was like, oh, he must have gotten uninvited. Like I said, not unless we're gonna have a twist. I keep like thinking there's gotta be more to this case, and I'm like, not unless we find out the twist that Flora and Aaron are actually behind the murder, and they set that whole thing up knowing that their brother would be the perfect scapegoat. Like, not unless they set that in motion. I don't know. it just seems like there's more to this case than we've gotten so far, that we've only kind of cracked the surface on it. But like I said, maybe they're actually all there is to it. But I think just it's interesting enough that like that whole case, I think it's, like I said, spurred that on in Jenny to be like, right, because she had like, that was kind of a pretty bad day. So she calls up Clark and is like, right, we need to talk. So I've been kind of avoiding you. And then she's looking at the placement card that Ross had made for Liam, which Ross then did go visit his grandma and was helping her out. And obviously she explains, like, after, you know, it's like, you know, some things like divided the family, obviously like the Katie thing. It's like, you know, it's like, right, she left after that because everyone grieved and dealt with the loss in their own way. And she talks about she did try to reach out to Jenny when Jenny was 16, but she says like the healing process takes as long as it takes. And so I was ready, but Jenny wasn't. And that's the problem of Ross, that I think the problem is he tried to rush this, like, because he knew his mom would say no, but it's like, yeah, you didn't give your mom an option. You didn't prepare her for this possibility. At least Liam, she prepared herself to be like, right, you want to invite him, and she made the decision of her own. You thrust this upon her. Like, you gave your grandma the option, but she kind of said no. Because she's like, yeah, like, you know, your grandpa and your mom always had a really good relationship. They were always a pair, so they're doing good. They've always, like, he raised her on his own, and they were going to be good. It's like, well, my mom has, like, these panic attacks and issues, and grandpa's got dementia, so it's not all good. But it's like, you know, grandpa's like hallucinating, and who did he see? You. Because so for Ross, he think, like, I don't know what spurred this on, whether it's just like, right, getting to know a side of his family that's just kind of been there. Like, he knows she's out there, and it's like, hey, I want to get to know a part of myself. Maybe in his own mind, he thinks if he can bring them together, like, oh, like, grandpa would be happy to see Peggy, and maybe it'll help mom in some shape or form. But it's like, for one, that's not your choice to kind of rush that. Like, everyone needs their time to get, you know, because I don't even know if Ross has fully dealt with everything that happened a couple episodes ago either. Like, maybe this is his way to kind of compensate for that. Because he did, interestingly enough, not invite, like, Mateo to the dinner or whatever. So I think they might be in a particularly weird spot. Like, I think because of Mateo's connection to that case and everything, and just the situation Ross kind of found himself in, and like maybe he's kind of subconsciously or maybe consciously distancing himself from Mateo a little bit because of all that. So maybe he kind of blames Mateo on some extent, because it's like, right, because you wanted me to relax a little bit, like, you're trying to help me out, almost like you giving me those drugs and everything almost landed me in jail. Granted, he was trying to protect, like, not only Mateo, but the dude he was with. Like, there's a whole thing in that regard. So, I don't know. It's interesting to know why, like, Ross is doing what he's doing, but for Peggy, she feels like it's too late. Like, all the issues, like, there's just been too much time. There's no repairing anything from now. Like, it's going to just be more salt to the wounds. Like, Jenny's not ready, and you know, it's like, she just doesn't feel like, I think just on her own personal side of things, it's like, I don't feel like it's right for me to kind of come back into people's lives without there being, you know, it's come back into their lives after all this time. Like, it's just been so much time. So kind of like getting away from, like, well, serious, but also not too serious. We do see, like, the Dennis and River thing, which I was, like, asking, like, I think last episode, being like, oh, we never got to catch up with that. But it's like, yeah, like, she's like, oh, I know this kind of, like, she's like, I'm a really good cook, so I'm bringing him over. And he's like, yeah, luckily you're dating a boss. And for River, it's like, oh, she never thought about it before. Like, it never crossed her mind to really think about, like, there is this complicated power dynamic of, like, right, you are her boss, there's not supposed to be work relationships, but also, like, I thought she took it as, like, him being your boss, that kind of makes it a little power dynamic-y, that's kind of a iffy place, but it's more so specifically because of HR. It's like, obviously Dennis loves working here, like, it's kind of all he's ever wanted, but also River loves her job too, and she's afraid of losing her job because, like, you know, it's an HR nightmare. But Dennis goes, like, you know, it's like, if I have to choose between this job and you, like, I'll choose you. Like, to be fair, we started, like, dating before, like, I even got this job, so maybe from an ethical standpoint, we were like, okay, but he's like, either way, River, will you go with me to talk to HR? And she's like, yes, I will. I was like, I actually thought that was really sweet and nice, like, you know. So Dennis will probably end up having to try and get a job somewhere else, potentially. Like, that way it wouldn't be a conflict of interest, him being her boss and them dating. It would complicate things. But I think it's sweet. It's going to be interesting to see where things kind of go from there. But at the end of it all, Jenny is... she is preparing, like breakfast and stuff like that. She's got some presents ready. There's like one present she wanted Ross to open, but you can see it in the background. Like, you can see like it's pegging. You're like, oh boy. And then she comes over and just like it all hits her all at once. And it's just like, oh, hi. And just like in one fell swoop, Jenny slaps her mom almost just like immediately. It's just like, yeah, you shouldn't throw all this at your mom all at once. Ross just didn't think about like what this would do, what it would trigger for her. Once again, we've only kind of got Jenny's perspectives on things. We've gotten peeks into Peggy's, but still, like, I'm curious about things from her point of view to some extent, like what's kind of going through her mind with it all. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see where all this takes us. The next episode is the season finale, so it's definitely going to be interesting to see how they wrap this up, especially because Donovan wanted to wrap this case up because he's like, right, he's got his leave. That's because of the surgery and stuff like that. So how that's going to turn out is going to be an important thing to keep in mind, but also like Jenny and his family circumstances. And like I said, if there's nothing more to like this Caleb case next episode, I'll deal with it. If there's more, I'll be super excited just because I feel like there is, but well, I'll ultimately have to wait and see. I'm not going to watch any promo because I don't want to know until I see the episode, but it's definitely going to be interesting to see how all of this wraps up season 3, but I already know too that the show has already been renewed for a 4th season, so what's set up for season 4 will this season leave us off with? Because these seasons tend to like end things off on just kind of like, yeah, everything's kind of not resolved, but like cleanly end things without there being too much like, it's usually personal stories that are like continuing to see, like obviously like the Jenny and Liam thing was something that was kind of left open at the end of season 2, but other than that, like, these shows, and this show tends to end off like pretty cleanly where like not a lot is left open, so it's just purely like, hey, what's next in the story essentially, what cases, what other personal stuff is going to come up, like stuff like that. So it's going to be interesting to see what the season finale has in store for us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.